In 1918, America thought the Great War was finally over. Our boys were coming home, celebrated as heroes who had saved the world. But they didn't come home alone. They carried with them a silent, invisible enemy, something far deadlier than any bullet or artillery shell. It was an enemy that would sweep through every city, every town, and every home, from the bustling streets of New York to the quiet plains of Kansas. It was called the Spanish flu, and before it was done, it would kill more Americans than World War I itself. Welcome to Neo Historica A.I, the channel where we uncover the real stories that shaped America. If you think you know the story of the Spanish flu, I promise you, there's more to uncover. Because what happened in 1918 wasn't just a tragedy. It was a turning point that changed the United States forever. To make sure you never miss these forgotten chapters of our nation's past, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel grow. The invasion didn't start in a major city or on a battlefield. It started in the heartland, at Camp Funston, an army training base in Kansas. In March 1918, a company cook reported to the infirmary with a fever, a sore trot, and a headache. Within hours, over 100 more soldiers were sick. They were packed together, getting ready to ship out to the war in Europe. They collapsed with violent fevers, gasping for air, and coughing up blood. When they were shipped overseas, the virus went with them. But here's the terrifying part. The virus mutated. When it came back to America on returning ships, it was a monster. The second wave, in the late summer and fall of 1918, was catastrophic. In Philadelphia, Boston, and New York, it was no longer just a fever. People would feel fine in the morning and be dead by nightfall. Entire families were wiped out in a matter of hours. The disease spread with terrifying speed, passed on with a handshake, a cough, or just by breathing the same air in a crowded street. America was facing an enemy it couldn't see and didn't understand. The silent invasion had begun. Imagine a country under siege, not by a foreign army, but by something invisible. By October 1918, that was America. Hospitals weren't just full. They were overflowing into hallways, tents, and auditoriums. Nurses and doctors, many of whom were just out of medical school, were working themselves to exhaustion, often falling sick themselves. The demand for coffins became so great that cities ran out. Bodies piled up in morgues, and in some places, they were buried in mass graves, wrapped only in sheets because there was nothing else. Cities ground to a halt. Theaters, churches, dance halls, and schools were all shut down. Public gatherings were banned. The government, trying to prevent widespread chaos, told people not to panic. But how could they not? The panic was already there, simmering beneath the surface. In Philadelphia, a massive parade was held to support the war effort and sell Liberty bonds. Thousands of people packed the streets. It was a patriotic spectacle, but it became a death march. Within 72 hours, every hospital bed in the city was full. Within a week, thousands were dead. This wasn't a war fought overseas. It was a war fought on every street corner, in every home, and for the first time in a long time, America felt truly helpless. But even in the middle of this horror, when it felt like the world was ending, the American spirit refused to be extinguished. When the institutions failed, ordinary people stepped up and became heroes. Nurses, many of whom were volunteers with the Red Cross, risked their lives every single day, caring for the sick with little more than gauze masks for protection. Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts went door to door not asking for money, but delivering food and medicine to families who were too sick to care for themselves. In some cities, telephone operators stayed at their posts, connecting desperate families to the few available doctors, even as they heard the sounds of suffering on the other end of the line. Communities found ways to adapt and fight back. In Seattle, the city passed an ordinance making it illegal to be in public without a mask. Police officers, nicknamed mask slackers, handed out fines to anyone who disobeyed. In Chicago, the streets were eerily empty as people chose to stay home to protect their families. It was a time of immense fear and loss, but it was also a time when neighbors looked out for neighbors. People shared what little they had. In the face of an unimaginable crisis, they found a sense of unity forged in shared suffering. This wasn't just about survival. It was about holding on to their humanity in the darkest of times. By the time the pandemic finally receded in 1919, the toll was staggering. An estimated 675,000 Americans had died. It had killed more people in a single year than a decade of the AIDS epidemic. Life expectancy in the United States dropped by a shocking 12 years. The country was scarred, but it was not broken. In fact, from that immense pain came incredible progress. The pandemic exposed the massive flaws in America's public health system, or rather, the lack of one. In the years that followed, city, state, and national public health departments were created or dramatically expanded. The crisis spurred a new era of medical research, focusing on virology and epidemiology. Scientists began to seriously study the concept of vaccines and how to fight infectious diseases on a population-wide scale. The entire medical system was forced to evolve, creating the foundations for the emergency response protocols and the healthcare infrastructure we rely on today. The pandemic was a brutal, agonizing lesson, but it was a lesson America learned. It transformed our nation's relationship with medicine and science forever. The 1918 Spanish flu was more than just a historical event. It was a defining moment that reshaped America. It taught us not just how to fight disease, but how we value life itself and the importance of community in a time of crisis. It's a powerful, sobering reminder that even in the deepest darkness, in the face of overwhelming odds, Americans find a way to endure, to rebuild, and to stand tall. It's a story of loss, but it's also a story of resilience. If you believe stories like this are important and should never be forgotten, please hit that like button, share this video with someone who might find it interesting, and make sure you subscribe to Neo Historica A.I. We're dedicated to bringing America's hidden pasts back to life, one story at a time. Thanks for watching.